You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with your host, D-Cal.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? It is D-Cal here with the E.I.T.H.R podcast from the GNSHQ here in Northern California. Happy Friday to those of you who are listening to the podcast. Listen, I want to thank you guys for standing by for episode 102. Today is Friday, and if you're new to this, I want to explain to you a little bit about what we do. And if you are returning, you already know what the deal is. On Fridays, we do what's a thing called What's Your Mile. And What's Your Mile is sponsored by My Clothing Line. And what that does, it gives you an opportunity to explain some of the difficult tasks that you have that you're actually going to overcome, crush, and conquer. So we're going to get into last week's, and then we're going to start a new one this week. But before we go any further, make sure you follow us on social media, which is on Instagram or Twitter. You can hit us at the E.I.T.H.R, T-H-E-I-T-H-R. You can also follow us on TikTok, which is underneath the parent company of the GNS Inc. You can also subscribe to our TV channel. Yeah, we have a TV channel, a streaming channel, at gnsetv.com. It's free to subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple of minutes of your time to fill out a profile and see what we got. We got some videos in our VOD, which is videos on demand. And we also have the Calm Within the Storm playlist going right now. It's a accumulation of videos and instrumentals that I filmed or I created to kind of help decompress and take your mind off of whatever the bullshit that you got going on in your life. And I remember I met one lady in St. Helena. We were talking about the playlist, and she says she likes to listen to music like study music, even if she has nothing to do. It's just something to kind of decompress and take her mind off, and she can zone out. So there's videos that you can watch if you want to, like sceneries, almost like looking out a window. Or you can crank the volume up and close your eyes and go into your own happy place. GNSETV.com. Also, 916-282-9372. That's the phone number. 916-282-9372. If you have anything that you would like us to talk about, you can give that number a call. You can give that number a text along with some of the other outlets for social media. And let your boy know if it's something that you feel that I haven't discussed yet, you want me to address it. We can go ahead and do that. We also do what's called shout out. And so what I want to do is give a shout out to my boys, the Golden State Warriors, the NBA team in the Bay Area. Tonight is Game 6. Because of what's been proven and what's been demonstrated and what has been achieved when it comes to championships, they're taking up the up-and-coming little brother of Northern California, the Sacramento Kings. The Warriors are up 3-2 in a 7-game series. They're playing in San Francisco at about an hour and 45 minutes. If the Warriors win, they advance to the next round of playoffs. If the Kings win, then there's a Game 7 back in Sacramento this coming Sunday. I want to give a shout out to my Dubs. And I want to give a shout out to the Kings as well. Because let's face it, man. It's been a minute since the Kings haven't had anything worth cheering for. So, shout out to them boys, man. They did their thing today. We also do what's called inspirational motivational. And this is from my homegirl Leslie Brazil. She posted this earlier. Maturity is learning to walk away from people in situations that threaten your peace of mind, your self-respect, values, morals, and your self-worth. How about that? You can't put a price on a peace of mind. You can't put a time limit on it either. If anything's messing with your zen, it has to go. I'd rather feel the pain of missing something toxic than the pain of missing tranquility. It's your boy D.K.L. to Eat the Podcast. We're going to get right into the topic we talked about. Like I said in the description, I have an issue with Disney. And we're going to talk about that and some other things. It's your boy D.K.L. here to Eat the Podcast. Right after a shout out from the sponsor.
Most t-shirts are simply cool to look at and or look in. Well, so are ours. But ours also aim to send a message. They aim to put a name on obstacles that once stood in your way and aren't there anymore. Struggles that you turned into successes and crushed. You made it look easy. Shop at mile.today. Mile.today. www.mile.today. A GNS collection.
What up, though? This is La Cabrona Más Chingona from Kansas City, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with my boy, D.Cal.
Welcome back to the E.I.T.H.R podcast. So, as I was saying earlier in the description, I have a small problem with Disney. And the issue that I have with Disney might not be the same issue that many people have with Disney. But we're going to get into it. And you can also give a take on what you feel, if you agree with this or not. If you have the Spreaker app, you can go ahead and chat along with us. Episode 102. Let me know what you think about that. You can also go ahead and chat with us on social media. Again, on Twitter or Instagram, it's the E.I.T.H.R, T-H-E, E.I.T.H.R, the elephant in the room. Here's my issue that I personally have with Disney. It's a juggernaut. It is a giant amongst mere mortals when it comes to the world of movies. And I acknowledge that. Hell, I respect that. But sometimes you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I remember, and this is a big argument on social media, because some people weren't old enough to understand. But back in the late 90s, like 1998, Marvel was struggling, right? In the world of film. Wesley Snipes did a movie called Blade. It wound up doing two other movies, so it wound up having a trilogy. But the first Blade said Wesley Snipes. It had Stephen Dorff. It had quite a few people in this film. And arguably, man, that was the film that put Marvel back on the map. It was the film that made people say, okay, Marvel's something to reckon with. They can make films. And then they went ahead and did E.I.T.H.R with Jennifer Gardner. They did Daredevil with Ben Affleck. And, well, I think they did their best. E.I.T.H.R really wasn't that bad of a movie to me. I thought it was dope. I think Ben Affleck, he was a better Batman than he was Daredevil. And he did a good job at Daredevil. But if we're talking in baseball analogy, in my opinion, Daredevil was a single. It could have been a double, but they threw the ball to cut the run off. He had to go back to first base. That's my opinion of Daredevil. But what happens is you have all these movies, and eventually you kind of become known just for that character or those characters. Chris Evans, in Marvel, right? He played Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four with Jessica Alba. Later on, he wound up playing Steve Rogers or Captain America. And just a side note, my opinion, listen, I think Johnny Storm, I think Captain America was his better character, but something tells me Johnny Storm is more his personality. I feel that's who he is in real life, is a Johnny Storm kind of character. And Cap was serious business, but he did his thing. He is the reason why Captain America became my favorite Marvel character. Because even though he didn't have the fancy gadgets like Iron Man or the hammer like Thor or this big raging monstrous being like the Hulk, dude was very strategic and very focused, and he looked out for the little guy. And it was kind of like the German scientist told him in the first Captain America. It's not because he's a good soldier, it's because he was a good man. That's kind of, I respect that. So, in Captain America, that's who he became. He embodied that position. And for the last 10 years, Chris Evans has always been associated with Captain America. And I mean, he was in Push. You know, he's in a plethora of different movies. I remember the movie he was also with Keanu Reeves. I think it's called Street Kings, with him and Forrest Whitaker and a bunch of other people. Excuse me. But here's my problem, is when you get films like this, a lot of actors and actresses become very, very weary because they don't want to become what's called typecasted. And what that is, it's kind of like Chris Hemsworth, where, what was the one movie he did right after Thor? It was, it's on the tip of my tongue. It was a Netflix film where he did something different because he did not want people to solely associate him with Thor, the God of Thunder. So he did a completely different film. And it's not like he hasn't done any films before this, and it's not like he's not going to do any films after this, but that was the scenario. Why I bring this up, because I saw not too long ago a criticism of the movie Ghosted, which was with Chris Evans, and he was also co-starring along with, give me one quick second, I have it in my notes, Ana de Armas. I hope I didn't chop her name up horribly too bad. Ana de Armas. So, it's an Apple TV film. Listen, I'm Team Android all day. Sorry, Chris. Love you, but not love you enough to go against my Android squad. But the movie got a lot of Spiderhead. Hi, Alicia. Spiderhead. I don't. If you're referring to Chris Evans, he might have been in the movie Spiderhead. I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it. But thank you for chatting with me on the Spreaker chat line. I appreciate that. But the issue is, people didn't like it, and I remember hearing this one part of this video who was kind of doing reviews of the film, and it was a scene where he was bounded, like his hands were tied in front of him, like he was kidnapped. I think it's part of the premise of the movie. He was kidnapped, thrown in a trunk, and he was bound by a rope, and his mouth was tied, and he was basically like taken hostage. And it was scenes like that people kind of mocked and made fun of. And I think the problem with that is they're used to Captain America busting out of vibranium magnetically attached handcuffs in an elevator and fighting 13 SHIELD agents before the elevator reached the bottom floor, right? So to see someone who plays that character who can't escape a rope, a lot of people shied away from that. They also said that the chemistry between the two was horrible. I don't know if they're relating to the chemistry he had with Scarlett Johansson, who played Black Widow in the Marvel films. I don't know if they're talking about the chemistry he had with Peggy Carter in the Marvel films. Thank you, Alicia. Extraction. That was the film with Chris Hemsworth. Extraction. That movie got mixed signals as well. It got mixed emotion, mixed reviews, because so many people were accustomed to Thor that it was weird seeing him play something with a shirt on and glasses and a gun, right? So you get people who are typecasted. And from an actor's perspective, I remember hearing this from somebody like years ago. It's one of their biggest fears, because fans see you as this particular character or this type of character, and fans cannot see you past that. They can't see you as anything else. Prime example, Michael Cerna, or Cerna. And I don't remember the other guy's name, but when I say this name, you're going to recognize him. Fogel. When you think of Fogel, you think of, yeah, chicka, fake IDs, what up, gangster? Like that guy. You think of him. Notice you haven't seen either of them in films lately, because people can't picture him anything other than Fogel. People can't see Michael Cena as anything other than Superbad. Right? They can't see the Napoleon Dynamite. Anytime you see him in a film, you think Napoleon Dynamite. It's beautiful that you recognize them for these characters, because that means they played that character so well. And it was a lasting impression. The shitty part, they can't do anything else, because they always want to have that label. It's almost as if they're trapped within the success of a character. You see what I'm saying? Anthony Mackie. You got to remember Anthony Mackie. He plays Falcon, right? But Anthony Mackie has been in some brilliant films. He's either Falcon or he's Papa Doc from 8 Mile. That's what people recognize him for. You have a meme of him saying, there's a meme of him in the scene where he's battling Eminem at 8 Mile, and then a scene of him as Falcon in one of the Marvel movies, and it says something to the effect of, it was Eminem embarrassed him so badly that it wound up being easier just to become an Avenger, or something to that effect, right? But those are the two films that people associate Anthony Mackie with. That man was in Manchurian Candidate, a very small role in Manchurian Candidate, but I love that movie. It's one of my favorite Denzel Washington movies of all time. If you remember Notorious, the movie by Notorious B.I.G., people forget about this. People don't even recognize or realize this. Anthony Mackie is the one who played the Tupac character in that film. Anthony Mackie was also in another film, Eagle-Eye, with Shia LaBeouf. You had Billy Bob Thornton. You also had, what's her name? From Sin City. Anyway, Rosario Dawson. Right? And Eagle-Eye. But people only recognize him for those two characters, Papa Doc or Falcon. And it was Anthony Mackie who actually made the point. There are no more movie stars. And a lot of people gave some feedback to that, as if he's being a little too outspoken. Because I believe it was Martin Scorsese, as well as Quentin Tarantino, who ultimately said the same thing. Marvel is killing the movie star. And people thought the two of them were hating. They thought they were, you guys are long to the tooth. Your films are this, your films are that. You're just mad. These films are blowing your films out the water. You know how social media gets. But when you truly break it down, the sharp people understood. The rest of us, it took us a little bit more time to do some digging. And they're right. The movie star is being murdered. Matter of fact, I'll read you what Anthony Mackie says. He says this in an article. This is a while ago, actually. There are no movie stars anymore. Like Anthony Mackie isn't a movie star. The Falcon is a movie star. And that's what's weird. Basically what I said about Chris Evans, you don't recognize him as any of the characters that he's played. You recognize him as Captain America. Scarlett Johansson was in Lucy. She was in, I remember the first time I saw her, she was in Eight-Legged Freaks. And that's not even her first movie. That's the first movie I remember seeing her in. Scarlett Johansson was also in Don John. She's been in Black Widow, her standalone movie, which unfortunately didn't do as good because of COVID. But that's who we recognize these people for. We recognize the Marvel characters for the Marvel character and not for the actual person who does it. So my problem with Disney, and this is my opinion, Decal here on the E.I.T.H.R podcast, Disney knows this shit. They know this. They understand that for the next 10, 12 years, no one's going to remember Don Cheadle as Rocket from Colors. They're not going to remember Don Cheadle from Basher in the Ocean 11, Ocean 12, Ocean 13. They're not going to remember Don Cheadle from Schrader. They're not going to remember Don Cheadle from Brooklyn's Finest. They're not going to remember Don Cheadle from any of those things. Just to name a few, a very few of his movies. They're going to remember Don Cheadle as War Machine. War Machine becomes the character. Not Terrence Howard. War Machine. It's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. Because after that role has played out, it then becomes very dangerous, in my opinion, from my observation, for the actor or the actress to get a part. Because just like I said with Michael Cera, just like I said for the guy who played Fogel, just like I said for the guy who played Napoleon Dynamite, no one's going to recognize you. You have to be as good as you were when I first saw you in that film that made the impression on me that time. Today. That's almost like having a first experience for a second or third time. And it's difficult. Now, this might be old guy yelling at cloud. But in today's world where what happened yesterday is looked at as old news, when you bring someone the attention, when you show someone a meme that you saw 20 minutes ago, you tell that person, dude, this meme's old. I already saw this. It's like, bro, it hasn't even been half an hour and it's old already. Our minds process things and our minds get rid of shit so quickly. So in the realm of acting, where you have to dedicate time to a craft to master a character, you may only be known for that one character. And you may only be used for that character, and that's it. That's a very slippery slope for some of these people to do. And then you run the risk of being called, oh, he fell off, if you don't do any more films or you don't get any more work. We have to appreciate the talent that's out there, man. That we just do. But in a world of social media, and again, this is not bashing social media, they just simply say that everyone can be their own star because they have their own views, they have their own attention. So it also kind of waters down the talent that's out there because people can do the same shit at home. They're doing it. with apps and filters. So you're you're kind of replacing, in theory, makeup artists. You're kind of replacing hairstylists, because you could just do everything with an app from your phone or your laptop or a webcam. It's very tricky. So that's my problem with Disney. They're so much of a giant that literally they're going to, again, this is my opinion, use you for what they need you for with this character or this series, and that's it. We got you for the next 10 years. What did Don Cheadle say? He was at a birthday party for, I want to say it was one of his kids, but my man was at a birthday party and he got hit up by Marvel's executives. And the executives told him, we need to know whether you're in or out on this 10 movie contract deal. And he's like, yo, I'm at a party. I can't think about 10, what? I'm at a party. Okay, we'll give you 2 hours, but we need to know if you're in or out. And I understand. I get it. But 10 films with this one franchise. Some of us look at it as a perspective of, listen, I got 10 guaranteed paychecks. I'm good with that. But if you're a Marvel fan, this is not that big of a deal to you. If you are a movie star, you pride yourself on the range of characters you can play. You pride yourself on being able to go to different levels of your career and your ability to show your talent. You don't want to be a one-trick pony. You don't want to be the person, oh, he's just Luke Cage. Oh, he's only Joker. That's Harley Quinn, right? You don't want to be labeled as just that. It's great when you go out in public, you'll always be remembered until they reboot your show or they reboot your film. Then all of a sudden, that reboot can either tarnish the original or erase the original out of memory. So again, going back to my problem with Disney, you bastards take a chunk of a character's life, a chunk of an actor's life, make them play one person specifically, do not give them any time to play anything else. It's a smart move for you. I get it. But for someone like myself who grew up with a lot of these actors, once you phase them out of their Marvel character, it's very hard. A lot of people don't even accept Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes unless you've seen Robert Downey Jr. before Iron Man. You get it. What's your opinion? What do you think? Do you think it's no big deal, it's fine? Or do you think, damn, I never looked at it that way? And you kind of have more of appreciation for the craft that they're doing. And you kind of feel a certain type of way because, like, damn, their whole career is going to be just for this. It's a hell of a role. I get it. But it's also kind of like, damn, now what? They used everything you had and threw you out and said, best of luck. and they're growing. It's interesting, man. It's interesting, but that's my issue that I have with Disney. Do you think they're creating a problem? Or do you think this is going to be like anything else? This is just going to be the new normal. Signing somebody with a 5-movie deal, 10-movie deal, 20-movie deal. Do you see that as, hey, I'm set for life with this particular franchise? Or do you think, no, if I spend all this money to become an actor, I want to be able to show I have range? What say you guys? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Twitter, Instagram, the E.I.T.H.R, E.I.T.H.R. You can text or call with your opinion, 916-282-9372. Every Friday we do a segment called What's Your Mile? Last week, I gave you guys a homework assignment. How many of you guys did it? The homework assignment was to give a compliment to a complete stranger. in addition to give a compliment to yourself. How many of you guys gave a compliment to someone while you're out in public? I have. I mean, you compliment somebody's hat, you compliment somebody's car, you compliment somebody's, thank you for holding the door open. I really appreciate that. You don't get too many courteous people. You don't see too much courtesy in the streets nowadays. Simple compliment. Out of 7 days, I probably threw out maybe a compliment on average 2 a day. 2 a day. Now, when it came to complimenting myself, out of 7 days, I probably gave myself a compliment about 3 in 7 days. I know I need to do better. I should do better. And I will do better. Alicia says, daily goal, appreciate people that you come into contact with. That's true. Because everyone who comes into your life is there for a reason. Any and everybody. And you may not know what that lesson is. You may not understand what that purpose is just yet. But trust me, there's something with any and everybody. Even the person who cuts you off. Even if you're a teacher somewhere in California and you got parents cussing you out and telling their children, don't talk to you, don't look at you, you're not going to be in their class anymore. There's a lesson in that to appreciate the people who do like how you teach. If there's any teachers out there who can relate to that, you're probably looking at your phone or your radio laughing right now, shaking your head. Like, how does he know he's talking about me? Just call it a hunch. Just call it a hunch. But this week for What's My Mile, I'm going to go ahead you know what? I'm going to get another guest on the podcast. I don't know who, but look for me to get a guest for the podcast this coming Wednesday. You will have a guest person, so it's not just my voice speaking on the episode, which should be 104 at that time. That's my mile. Let me write that down. My mile, episode 104. Guest on podcast. Boom. There we go. It's written, so therefore it shall be done. I was having a conversation with someone too about the economy, right? And I keep friends who are on both sides of the spectrum. I think I've said this before. The reason being, man, is I like to be informed. I may not share your political views. I may not share your religious views. I may not share your personal views or financial views. But I do want to be informed with why you think this way and how did you come to this conclusion. And I had somebody who I was speaking with, and this is a business, right? I said this every single episode I talk about politics. The shit's a business. But I also think that part of this is set up. Like, I think the only reason why Obama came in president was to get the black vote, was to get people of color to be more engaged in voting so they can see, in my opinion, this is my opinion, in the conversation that I have with somebody else, to get a consensus of how many and where are they located. You still had voter suppression throughout the country, so that was probably, their census may have had a certain number, and the votes came out and it was more than what they expected, and they weren't expecting this many votes, so they had to either adjust or suppress. Again, I'm not making this shit up. Voter suppression happened in the last election, last 2 elections actually. So Obama was there to kind of stir the pot to get that going. And then when that landslide happened, the people who voted for him, well, they're pissed because the expectations didn't happen the way they thought it was going to happen. Then the next guy comes in. We all know who we're talking about. Yes, I'm the president of the United States. I have a hotel. I am very good with my words, lots of words. My grandniece is a teacher, and she's a dancer. She's very good. She's very good at what she does. That guy. So he was put in, I feel, to stir the other pot. Now, in this conversation that I had with this person, I told him, I said, the one thing that I will give Trump credit for is Trump did not play by the rules. He said, fuck y'all. Here's what I'm going to do. And at that point, Chris Rock made a joke. He says, in schools, they got rid of all the bullies. In society, they got rid of all the bullies. They made it illegal for anyone to bully. Then they got Trump in office, and no one can control him because no one in the government understands how to handle a bully. Because Trump is a bully. But he's a bully to those who cannot fight back. Right? He's smart with it. And if you remember, like I do, there was this big thing about him being in, quote unquote, in bed with Putin and all this other fun stuff. And anytime he has something negative to say about any kind of government official or government leader in the world, he did not shy his opinion. But when it came to Putin, he was like, no, Putin's a really nice guy. He's just misunderstood. He always has something good to say about Putin. Putin was worth like what? 200 billion. Trump knew where the money was. He's a businessman. So a lot of people figured that he was going to be able to fix the economy. In some aspects he did. But not in the sense that we needed it to. Hence, in addition, COVID-19. Whether people believed in the virus, whether it was a hoax, whether it was a fake, it shut the country down for a couple of years. That's a hell of a joke. Then you bring in Sleepy Joe, which, in my opinion, kind of proves my theory all along that the government is also ran by senile drunks, because this guy is half asleep. The other time, he's barely awake. But I understand his intentions may possibly be good if he can just remember what he's supposed to say and actually pronounce the words he's supposed to say and understand where he is when he's saying it. I think more people would understand what he's trying to say. That guy. But all this was orchestrated because I think, feel, and believe we were already set to go into a digital currency world. The BRIC system, listen, I think a lot of people have this understanding when it comes to economics and news and politics. We think once we see it, the shit just happened. No. We see what they want us to see when they decide to release it to us. Half this shit probably was already discussed 5 to 10 years ago. They just ironed it out to the point now. Is everyone happy? No. Is everyone pissed? Kinda? Okay. It's a fair deal for everybody then. Then word gets leaked out to society. And we think because we see it for the first time, this is happening now. Listen. The Obama administration had already said that there was a virus coming. And I remember seeing it on the newspaper. On the front page, it had the death of Kobe Bryant. And I believe it was the front page, or it might have been the back page of the newspaper about COVID-19. So it was there on the outs of Obama. So they knew it existed in the world. I don't think they expected it to come here to the United States. But they were aware of it before it touched down in San Jose, California, for the first time in America. So the point is, this stuff is already happening before we know about it, right? It's already there, y'all. So again, with the digital currency, it makes it easier for the government to track money. It's convenient for us because we don't have to worry about paper money. We don't have to worry about change. We don't have to worry about counting anything. We don't have to worry about getting robbed. We don't have to worry about losing anything. We don't have to worry about none of that. I get it. It's super convenient. If you're old enough to remember about balancing a checkbook, that comes in handy. If you don't know what the fuck a checkbook is, it's almost like having your statements, but on pen and paper. You personally keep track of it yourself. And it's a great way to know where your money is, because if you're paying by your card, transactions just come out. And sometimes it isn't processed immediately. Sometimes it processes 24 to 48 hours. And if it's a weekend, it might be 48 hours of the next business day. Or if it's a holiday, that can get delayed. Just like if you have direct deposit, everything is digitally set up. So if the system is set, okay, this is a holiday, it's going to pause it. The bricks is something where and I feel a lot of these governments, their economies aren't in the same shape as ours are, because a lot of them have something to back their money on. We don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have anything to back our money since the mid-70s. Okay, so it's just a plethora of debt that we're creating, and we just built this hole. So now we're in a position where we're just going to make up shit and pay off a debt that way, which is stupid, but it's too far down the line to change that. It's too far down the hole to look up to see where the light is at this point. So you might as well keep digging, and hopefully you'll come full circle all the way back around. But this is a great way for the government to keep track of everything. I think, my belief is there's a shit ton of cash that they can't find, that is unaccounted for. There's a boatload of cash they're missing out from people and their taxes and fees and services. There's monies that is being exchanged at the table to where certain things can get, at least by making the currencies digital, you can track it, you can trace it, you can see the origin in all the accounts and digital hands it's touched. This was all a plan. So, in my opinion, this isn't something that just came out in 2023 with them. It just came out in 2023 to us. And along with that, I'm going to speak on something that I haven't spoke about on my podcast, and that's reparation. Now, people may feel how they feel about reparations, pro, con, good, bad, whatever. Me, I feel it's long, way overdue. But here's the problem with reparation, if you will. The timing is horrible, because we're looking at a crisis right now where there was a change shortage. We're looking at a situation where the dollar is weakened. We're looking at a situation right now where other countries are pulling out to create their own currency. We're looking at a time right now where digital currency, which I just got through speaking about, is going to become a thing. Also, inflation. Yes, prices are starting to drop a little bit here and drop a little bit there, but collectively, shit's going up. So you mean to tell me right now, there was something in San Francisco that if you're a resident of the city, San Francisco, California, you were going to get, I think it was like $800,000, $900,000 each. Okay? Let's just use that as an example. Let's go on the low end and call it $500,000. It's going to be more than that, supposedly. But let's just say $500,000. In 2023, what the fuck can you buy with $500,000? Think. We're not talking about Jordans. We ain't talking about red bottoms. We're not talking about Fleetwoods. We're not talking about Carl Kanai. Remember that? We're not talking about Cross Colors. Remember that? We're not talking about none of that. What can you buy for $500,000 in 2023? If you're in the Bay Area, what kind of house costs $500,000? Here's a hint to those who are not in the Bay Area, Northern California, never been to the Northern California. Let me give you a hint of what $500,000 can get you. $500,000 is going to get you a house that probably has squatters in it. No cabin doors, no bedroom doors, grass growing in the living room, probably not a complete roof. The backyard has somebody else's car in it. And the porch, do you really want to step on those stairs? Do you really trust them to hold your weight? That's what you can get $500,000. Now, of course, there are certain parts of the Bay Area that is more expensive than others. So you have your Tiburon, you have your Belvedere, which is in the Northern Bay, which is right there in Marin County. You have your spots in San Rafael. That's going to be pricey. You have your spots in St. Helena. You have your spots in Napa. You have your spots in San Jose. You got, Palo Alto, Atherton. You have Brentwood. You have Blackhawk. You have Palomares Hills. You have Columbia, Richmond Hills, Oakland Hills, Berkeley Hills, Fremont Hills. Yes, you got Danville. You have Alamo. You have Lafayette. You have all these places. You have Solano Ranch and Fairfield. You have all these spots that are expensive and well-kept neighborhoods and communities. Yes, you do. However, you have to go out to the Boone TF docks to get a house $500,000. It might be a nice house. It might be an older house. But you're going to have to drive someplace to get groceries. And I'm not talking about a quick to the light, make a right, drive a couple blocks, you at the Safeway. No. You might have to travel a distance for $500,000. I'm sure they'll probably have to come up with some kind of government assistance, aid. You might have to take out a second loan. The bottom line is $500,000 that's nothing in today's world. In retrospect, in the 80s, $20 could get you, and I'm not lying when I say this. I witnessed it with my own eyes when my mother went shopping. In the 80s, $20 would get you damn near a full cart of groceries. Like it was stupid. In the 90s, into the 2000s, $20, you didn't have as much groceries, but it all didn't fit where you would sit the kid either. Some sat in the bigger part of the grocery cart for $20. I want to say it was like after the second Bush administration. $20, you can start putting that shit. If you didn't have any kids, you can fit all your groceries where the child sits in a shopping cart. Now, $20 is going to cost you 2 jugs of water and 1 sushi tray from the deli. That's $20. Ain't that a bitch? $20 is going to get you a pack of chicken, and if you want the good rice, 1 big bag, milk, orange juice, and a candy bar. That's your $20. That's it. $20 a day gets you groceries where you don't even need a bag to carry shit out anymore. Growing up, you needed bags. Now, you can carry it one hand and use your other hand to show the receipt to the Walmart greeter so they can mark it with the highlight. That's $20. So I say that $500,000 in this case, fuck is that going to do, dog? If anything, that's going to get you in the home. It might get you some Big Lots furniture with some money left over, but that's about it. But in reality, we're looking at about $800,000 to $900,000. So this thing says, if that's the case. So $800,000 of reparation to anybody of African American descent from slaves from, listen, and again, I want to say, whether you agree with reparations or you disagree with reparation, it is what it is. The people who lost slaves got paid back for losing their property. But the people who were slaves didn't get shit. Not even the 40 acres and a mule they were promised. So, listen, if you think and believe that all black folks are going to do with reparation money is spend it on this, that, and the other, let them spend it on this, that, and the other. Because then you can sit back and say, listen, you got the money you've been crying about, and you still didn't do shit with it. Here's the problem. I think, feel, and believe. A reason why reparation hasn't happened, this is my opinion, and I'm sure some people with open minds are going to understand this. Closed-minded people, you probably didn't turn the podcast off already. The people who are at the bottom of the food chain, the ones who they choose to keep suppressed, the ones who they want to, for lack of a better term, financial experiment on. If you give those people financial freedom, you won't have anyone in your poor group. King Mansa Musa, who arguably is the richest man in the history of life, if he was alive today with his wealth, story has it, he would be worth $400 billion. And I remember hearing a story, he bankrupted Egypt because what he did was he gave every single person he saw a gold bar. And he bankrupted their economy. Basically, everyone had money. So the economy was going just one way. It wasn't in a cycle. It was just, there was no more poor, if you will, for lack of better terms. So if you give the people on the bottom financial stability and security, there's a great chance they're going to either A, change the environment in which they live by industrialization, which is the opposite of gentrification, where they're going to take that money and reinvest it into the community, which then makes the ghettos and the hood and the projects equivalent to the gated communities that thumb their nose at that group. Do they really want, on paper, they say all the right things, but do they really want a second coming of a Black Wall Street? Because you have to ask yourself, before the Watchmen TV show, many people didn't know about that. And I was shocked to find out how many people didn't know about what happened to Black Wall Street in Oklahoma. They blew that up because the other side was losing money. Because this group was making more. So they had literally eliminated their competition. Literally. So if you were to give reparation, you run the risk from a business perspective, because it's a business. This economy is a business. You run the risk of taking your highest yielding group of people, the most spending power of all cultures in America, and you make them consciously and financially fit. They're going to leave. So you listen, if a pimp understands a hoe needs this amount of money and she can leave him, why would he make sure she gets that kind of money? He won't. If he knows all she needs is guidance, he's going to keep her blind and crippled and dumb and confused, because no pimp wants a hoe with sense. That's why the government really is going to give this reparation at a time where the dollar ain't worth shit. What's your take? How do you guys feel about that? It's the E.I.T.H.R podcast with your boy DeCal. GNSETV.com. Go ahead, subscribe. The Calm Within the Storm is playing right now. E.I.T.H.R, the E.I.T.H.R on Instagram and Twitter. What's your mile? We will check back with you next week. Have a good weekend. Go Dubs.